You already know what you want. Deep down, you feel it every single morning when you wake up and realize your life still looks the same as it did last year. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You just have not been given the right tools. Until now. This audiobook is not a collection of feel-good quotes. It is a step-by-step guide built around one question. What is actually standing between you and the life you know you deserve? Over the next 10 chapters, you are going to discover exactly why you have been stuck, what to do about it starting today, and how to build the kind of daily discipline that turns real goals into real results. No fluff, no filler. Just the raw, honest truth about what it takes to get what you want, and the practical path to get there. Stay with this until the end. What you hear next will change how you see everything. Chapter 1. Define exactly what you want in life. Most people spend their entire lives moving without direction. They wake up every morning, go through the motions, work hard, come home tired, and repeat the same cycle day after day, without ever stopping to ask themselves the one question that changes everything. When you ask them what they truly want from life, they hesitate. They give vague answers. They say things like, "I want to be happy," or "I just want things to be better." And that is exactly why most people never get what they want. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, not because the world is unfair to them specifically, but because they have never taken the time to clearly and specifically define what they are actually chasing. Clarity is the starting point of every great achievement in human history. Every building that stands tall today started as a precise drawing on paper. Every successful business started as a specific idea, written down by someone who dared to be exact about what they were building. Every meaningful change a person has ever made in their life started with a clear and honest picture of what that change looked like. Nothing meaningful was ever built on vague wishes, and your life is no different. If you cannot describe what you want in clear, specific, and measurable terms, you are simply drifting. And drifting never takes anyone anywhere worth going. It just moves you in slow circles until you run out of time. Think about the last time you tried to reach a destination you had never been to before. You did not just get in the car and start driving with hope in your heart. You typed an address into a map. You needed something exact. You needed coordinates. Your goals work the same way. A vague direction will waste your time, your energy, and your years. A clear destination gives your mind something to navigate toward with purpose and with forward momentum that builds on itself every single day. The first and most important question you must answer is this: what do you actually want? Not what your parents want for you, not what your friends think you should pursue, not what society has told you is the reasonable and respectable path. What do you want? This is not a question to answer quickly or casually. This is a question to sit with seriously, to think deeply about, to write about honestly, to wrestle with until the real truth begins to emerge from beneath all the noise and expectation and conditioning you have accumulated over the years. Because the reality is that many people have been living according to someone else's definition of success for so long that they have genuinely forgotten how to hear their own voice. Start by getting quiet. Remove the noise of daily life for even 30 minutes. Sit with a blank piece of paper and a pen, not a phone, not a laptop, a pen and paper, because writing by hand creates a direct connection between your thoughts and your reality that typing simply cannot replicate in the same way. Write down everything you want without editing yourself even slightly. Do not judge what comes out. Do not filter it. Do not ask yourself whether it is realistic yet. Just write freely and honestly. Write about how you want your mornings to feel when you wake up. Write about the work you want to do with your time and your energy. Write about the relationships you want to have in your life. Write about the home you want to live in. Write about the health you want to carry in your body as you move through the world. Write about the freedom you want to feel in your chest every morning when you open your eyes without dread. Write about the impact you want to have on the people around you. Write about the legacy you want to leave when you are no longer here. Get it all out without holding anything back, because this is where your real life genuinely begins, on that page, with that pen, in that quiet moment of radical honesty with yourself and about yourself. Once you have poured everything out without restraint, go back and read what you wrote. Read it slowly and without rushing. Notice what excites you most deeply. Notice what makes your heart beat a little faster when you read it back to yourself. Notice where your breathing changes and your posture shifts. Those are the things that matter to you at the deepest and most authentic level. Those are the things worth pursuing with everything you have. Now take those things and begin to define them with real and specific precision that transforms them from vague feelings into concrete and actionable targets. Wanting to be wealthy is not a goal. Wanting to earn $10,000 a month by building a service-based business that solves a specific and real problem for real people by the end of next year is a goal. Wanting to be healthy is not a goal. Wanting to run a 5K in under 30 minutes while losing 15 pounds through daily movement and intentional eating by the end of this year is a goal. Wanting better relationships is not a goal. Committing to one genuine, distraction-free conversation with someone you love every single day is a goal. The difference between a wish and a goal is specificity. A wish stays in your head and gradually fades, like a dream you cannot quite remember. A goal goes on paper with a measurable outcome, a deadline, and a plan behind it. When you define your goals with this level of precision, something powerful and verifiable happens in your brain. Your mind shifts from passive dreaming to active problem-solving mode. Your subconscious begins scanning your environment for opportunities, information, and connections that match what you have defined. You start noticing things you would have completely overlooked before. A passing conversation becomes suddenly relevant. A book jumps out at you from a shelf. A connection you already have reveals itself as the key to a door you thought was permanently locked. This is not magic or coincidence. This is how the human brain works when it has been given a clear and specific target to orient toward consistently every single day. There is a deeper layer to this conversation that most books on goal setting skip entirely, and it is the layer that makes everything else sustainable long-term. Defining what you want is not just about outcomes. It is also fundamentally about values. You must genuinely understand why you want what you want, because if your goals are not truly connected to your values, you will either lose motivation before you reach them, or you will reach them and feel unexpectedly empty and hollow on the other side. Both outcomes are painful in different ways, and both are entirely avoidable when you do the deeper and more honest work of connecting your specific goals to your genuine core values. Ask yourself why each goal matters to you specifically. If you want financial freedom, why? Is it so you can provide for your family without the daily corrosive stress of financial uncertainty hanging over everything? Is it so you can have enough time and genuine space to create things that inspire you? Is it so you can give generously to causes and people you believe in without counting the cost first? The why behind the goal is the real fuel that will keep you moving forward when the road gets genuinely difficult and the initial excitement and motivation have long since faded into pure discipline, and the road will get difficult. That is not pessimism. That is simply honesty about how growth actually works in the real world for real people. But when your goal is genuinely and deeply connected to something you truly value, you will find the will to keep going, even on the days when everything in you wants to stop and turn back. Once you have defined what you want and connected it meaningfully to your values, the next practical step is to separate your goals into specific and manageable time frames. Where do you want to be in 10 years? This is your long-term vision, the big picture of the complete life you are consciously and deliberately building. Where do you want to be in 1 year from today? This is your medium-term goal, a meaningful milestone that represents real and significant progress toward your larger vision. Where do you want to be in 90 days? This is your short-term goal, the immediate and concrete target you will work toward with daily focused action and honest weekly review of your progress. And what can you do today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the time is better, but today, to move even one step closer to what you have defined. This is your daily commitment, the small but consistent step that compounds over time into everything else. Breaking your life vision down into these layers makes the future feel genuinely reachable rather than permanently overwhelming. When you look only at the 10-year picture in its full size, it can feel impossibly far away. But when you look at what you can do today in this specific moment, it feels manageable and real. And every single day that you take that one small step with genuine intention, you are closing the real gap between where you are now and where you have decided you want to be. Momentum builds on itself naturally over time. One step leads to the next. One win, no matter how small, gives you the concrete evidence and the growing confidence to take the next step with more conviction and more certainty behind it. There is one more thing you must do as you define what you want, and this requires real courage. Write it down and keep it somewhere you see. Every single day, without exception, your goals cannot live only in your mind. The mind is a busy and crowded place, full of distractions, worries, responsibilities, memories, and constant competing noise. Your goals need a physical home, a dedicated journal, a vision board, a note on your bathroom mirror, a card you carry in your wallet, something that keeps your attention physically anchored to what you have chosen to pursue, no matter what the day brings. Every morning when you wake up, read your goals before you do anything else. Every evening before you sleep, read them again. This consistent daily exposure keeps your mind focused on what matters and prevents you from drifting back into the comfortable but directionless chaos of a life without clear intention behind it. You will also need to be genuinely honest about the obstacles standing between you and what you want. Not to be discouraged by them, but to prepare for them with clear eyes and a ready mind. What skills do you not yet have that this journey will require? What resources are you currently lacking? What daily habits are actively working against you right now? What fears will arise and try to slow you down? What changes in your environment will be necessary to support the person you are becoming? Write all of these down as well, not as reasons you cannot succeed, but as a clear-eyed and honest map of the real territory you are about to navigate, with determination, preparation, and the kind of clear-eyed realism that sets serious people apart. There will be moments, and these moments are guaranteed to come, when your goal feels too big, when the distance between where you are standing today and where you want to be seems impossible to close with the resources you currently have. In those moments, come back to this chapter. Come back to the clarity you found when you sat down with that piece of paper and that pen. Come back to the values you honestly connected to your goals. That clarity is not just a planning tool. It is an anchor for the days when the storm is strong and the doubt is speaking loudest, and the road seems to have no visible end in sight. One of the greatest tragedies of modern life is not failure. Failure is survivable and often instructive. The greatest tragedy is regret. Regret is the specific and deeply painful feeling that comes from a life half-lived, from potential that was noticed but never honestly pursued, from dreams that seemed too large to be realistic, so they were never actually attempted with full commitment. The person lying at the end of their life is not usually haunted by the things they tried and failed at. They are haunted by the things they never tried. by the version of themselves they never fully became, by the life they could clearly imagine but never actually built, because they were always waiting for a better and more convenient moment that simply never arrived. You have a genuine choice right now, not tomorrow, right now, in this moment. You can choose to continue living with the same comfortable vagueness that has kept you circling the same familiar ground. Or you can choose, firmly, clearly, and with full personal commitment, to define exactly what you want and pursue it with everything available to you starting today. The life you want is not waiting for the right conditions, or the right season, or the right level of readiness. It is waiting for the right decision. And that decision starts with clarity. It starts with a blank piece of paper and the genuine courage to write down the full truth of what you want your one irreplaceable life to become. Define it clearly. Write it down fully. Revisit it every single day. Connect it deeply to what you truly value. Prepare honestly for the real obstacles ahead, and then commit to it, not just with your words, but with your actual daily choices, your protected time, your directed energy, and your unwavering refusal to drift away from what you have chosen to build with the one life you have been given. Chapter 2. Build an unbreakable mindset that refuses to quit. There is something that separates people who achieve great things from people who remain stuck in the same place, year after year. It is not intelligence. It is not privilege. It is not luck, timing, or the connections they were born into. What truly separates the people who rise from the people who stay down is mindset. It is the internal operating system that determines how a person responds when life becomes difficult, uncertain, or painful. And life will become all three of those things at some point, for every human being on earth, without any exception whatsoever. Your mindset is not something you were born with in its final and permanent form. It is not fixed. It is not predetermined. It is something that is built, shaped, and strengthened through deliberate thought, daily practice, and conscious decision-making every single day of your life. Every day, you are either building a stronger mindset or allowing a weaker one to take root in its place. There is no neutral ground between these two directions. You are either growing stronger in your thinking, or you are growing softer and more fragile. The question is, which direction you are consciously choosing with the moments you have been given. The first thing you must understand about building an unbreakable mindset is this: your thoughts are not facts. Most people live as prisoners of their own thinking. They hear a negative thought and treat it as absolute, unquestionable truth. They do not question it. They do not examine it with any critical eye. They simply accept it and allow it to dictate how they feel and what they do or fail to do with their days. This is one of the most destructive patterns a human being can carry, and most people repeat it endlessly without ever realizing they have the power to stop it completely. A thought is just a thought. It is an electrical signal in your brain, shaped by your past experiences, your fears, your conditioning, and sometimes by nothing more than a poor night of sleep or a difficult morning encounter. When a thought tells you that you are not capable of something meaningful, you have every right and every responsibility to yourself to challenge it directly. Ask yourself with honest curiosity, is this actually true? What is the real evidence for this belief? What is the evidence against it? How would my life look different if I chose to believe the opposite of this for the next 30 days? This is not about lying to yourself or pretending that everything is fine when it is not. This is about being intellectually honest enough to recognize when your own mind is actively working against your own life and your own potential. The Stoic philosophers understood this principle at a profound level. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote extensively about the critical importance of controlling one's own perception. He believed deeply that the only true power a human being ultimately possesses is the power to choose how they interpret what happens to them, not to control what happens. Because life will bring storms, whether you want them or not, and whether you deserve them or not, but to control the meaning you assign to those storms, to choose whether you see difficulty as evidence of your inadequacy or as instruction toward your continued growth. That choice, made consistently over time, is the practice of building an unbreakable mind. This is the foundation of an unbreakable mindset, the genuine and practiced belief that everything that happens to you is either moving you forward directly or teaching you something that will eventually move you forward indirectly. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is meaningless. A setback is not a sign that you are not capable of something great. It is a test of whether you want it badly enough to keep going, when stopping would be far more comfortable and far less painful in the short term. And every time you pass that test, every time you refuse to quit, when quitting would be the easier option, your mindset grows measurably stronger and more reliable. Building an unbreakable mindset requires more than just responding well to adversity when it arrives uninvited at your door. It requires proactive daily practice when things are relatively calm. It requires that you take deliberate control of what you feed your mind before the challenges arrive, because what you consistently feed your mind becomes the lens through which you see and interpret everything that happens to you. Feed it fear, negativity, and pessimism, and that becomes your default reality and your default response to every difficulty. Feed it possibility, discipline, and genuine belief in your capacity, and that becomes your operating system for everything you face. Start your day with intentional mental input before anything else. Before you scroll through social media feeds, before you check the news or your email, before you allow the world to dump its daily noise into your still-forming morning mind, take 15 to 20 minutes to feed your mind something that builds you up rather than tears you down. Read from a book that genuinely challenges your thinking and expands your understanding. Listen to something that sharpens your perspective and reminds you of what is possible. Write in a journal about what you are genuinely grateful for and what you intend to accomplish and become through this specific day. These small acts of intentionality create a buffer between you and the chaos of the world. They remind your brain, first thing in the morning, who you have chosen to be, and they set the tone for every decision and response that follows throughout the rest of the day. Gratitude deserves special attention here, because it is one of the most underrated and consistently underused tools for building genuine mental strength, and it is completely free and immediately available to every person reading this. When you train yourself consistently to look for what is working in your life, rather than defaulting automatically to what is not, you rewire your brain's habitual attention patterns over time. The brain is naturally designed to scan for threats, a feature useful for survival, but deeply destructive in daily modern life, when every inconvenience becomes a perceived crisis. Practicing genuine gratitude daily, writing down 3 specific and real things you are truly grateful for every morning, trains your brain over time to notice and emphasize the positive inputs in your environment alongside the challenges. This is not naivety. This is strategic and evidence-based mental conditioning. Another non-negotiable element of an unbreakable mindset is the quality of your self-talk throughout each day. Internal dialogue is constant and never fully stops for any human being. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, there is a voice inside your head narrating your experience, judging your performance, and shaping your perception of what you are capable of. Most people have never consciously examined what that voice is saying to them, hour after hour. They have never questioned whether the narrative running on loop in their head is either accurate or genuinely helpful, and so they carry it unchallenged for years and decades, allowing a story written in past pain and accumulated fear to define the current boundaries of their present possibility and their future potential. Begin paying close and honest attention to your self-talk every single day. When you notice language that is self-defeating and harsh, redirect it consciously towards something that is both genuinely honest and empowering. Not fake positivity that you do not believe for a single second. Not empty affirmations repeated mechanically, without any real conviction behind them. Real, grounded statements that acknowledge where you honestly are, while affirming where you are intentionally going. The difference in how these statements feel, compared to the self-defeating versions, is the difference in how they function in your brain, and ultimately, in your daily behavior, your daily choices, and the direction of your daily life. You must also develop what can best be described as a long view of your own life and progress. The people who quit are almost always the people who are measuring their progress over days and weeks, rather than months and years. The timeline you are working with changes everything about how you interpret your current situation and your current results. If you expect results quickly, and they do not arrive quickly, you will feel like a failure and find reasons to justify stopping. If you genuinely understand that real, lasting results are built slowly and consistently over long periods of deliberate effort, you will have the patience and the perspective to keep going through the dry seasons, through the plateaus, through the periods where nothing seems to be moving, even though everything is quietly compounding beneath the surface. Think about a tree growing in good soil. Above the ground, it might appear to look the same for months, with no visible change, no dramatic growth that anyone can see. But beneath the surface, the roots are spreading deeper and wider every day, building the invisible foundation for future growth that will eventually become undeniable to everyone who looks. Your life works the same way. There will be periods where you genuinely cannot see the progress, where it honestly feels like nothing is changing, no matter how hard you work or how consistently you show up. Those periods are not evidence that you are failing or that you have chosen the wrong direction. They are the period of root growth. The visible results are coming. They require patience from a mind that refuses to give up, just because the result has not yet arrived and cannot yet be seen. Resilience is not something you either have naturally or permanently lack. It is something you actively train for through small daily acts of doing what is genuinely hard, when doing what is comfortable would be far easier. Every morning you wake up when you want to stay in bed, you are training resilience. Every time you sit down to do the real work, when distraction is calling loudly, you are training resilience. Every time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, you are building the mental muscle that will carry you through the real challenges when they inevitably arrive with full force. Surround yourself deliberately with evidence that hard things are genuinely possible. Read the biographies of people who faced real and devastating obstacles. Study the stories of men and women who had every legitimate reason to quit, but chose to keep going anyway. Not to compare your situation to theirs in ways that feel unfair, but as a consistent reminder that the human spirit is capable of far more than comfort would ever allow or reveal. You are part of that same human tradition. The same capacity for resilience that lived in every person who ever turned their hardship into something meaningful lives inside you, too. It has always been there. You are building access to it through practice. An unbreakable mindset does not mean you never feel tired, scared, or genuinely doubtful. It means that when you feel those very human things, you do not allow them to make your decisions for you. You acknowledge the fear and take the next step anyway. You acknowledge the doubt and do the work anyway. You acknowledge the exhaustion and rest strategically when rest is what is needed. Then get back up and continue in the direction you have chosen. Because the goal is not to be emotionless or robotic or unmoved by life. The goal is to be unmovable in your direction, to have a core so deliberately and consistently built that no temporary feeling or difficult circumstance can permanently derail what you are committed to building over time. Every morning you wake up, you have a real and consequential choice. You can allow your mind to run on autopilot, driven by old fears and comfortable defaults, and the path of least resistance. Or you can take the wheel deliberately and intentionally. You can choose the thoughts you will entertain today, the responses you will give to difficulty and uncertainty, and the direction you will choose to move, regardless of how you feel. That choice, made consistently every single morning, without exception, is the practice of building an unbreakable mindset. Not a one-time decision, but a daily recommitment to the person you are choosing to become, through everything you face. You are building something real with your life, something that will matter, and the foundation of that something is not talent or luck or perfect circumstances. It is a mind that has been trained through daily deliberate practice to refuse defeat and to find forward motion in every circumstance it encounters. Build that mind every single day, and the rest of your life will follow in the direction you have had the courage and the discipline to choose. Chapter 3. Take bold action before you feel fully ready. Here is the truth that most people never fully accept about how progress actually works in the real world. You will never feel completely ready. Not for the first step of a new business. Not for the difficult conversation you know you need to have. Not for the leap of faith that your future self is standing on the other side of, waiting for you to take. Not for the risk that could change everything, if only you would stop waiting for certainty that is never going to come. The feeling of complete readiness is a myth. It is a story the fearful part of your mind tells you to keep you safely comfortable where you are, even when where you are is no longer serving you or the person you are becoming. Think about every important thing you have ever done in your life that actually mattered and made a real difference. Was there ever a moment of perfect preparation before any of it? Did you feel completely ready the first time you drove a car on a real road with real traffic? The first time you stood up to speak in front of a room full of people? The first time you started something new and completely unfamiliar, where the outcome was genuinely uncertain? Almost certainly not. You felt some version of nervous, uncertain, underprepared, or afraid. And yet you did it anyway. And because you did it anyway, you grew into someone slightly larger and more capable than you were before that moment. And because you grew, the next thing became possible. That is how real progress works in real human lives. Action creates readiness. Readiness does not create action. You do not prepare your way into confidence. You act your way into it through direct experience. The paralysis of waiting for the right moment is one of the most common and most costly reasons why intelligent, capable, and genuinely talented people never reach the level of life they know, somewhere inside themselves, they are meant for. They have the dream clearly in their mind. They have the idea that keeps returning. They have the intention and sometimes even the detailed plan. But they keep waiting for conditions to align perfectly before they begin. They wait for more money, more knowledge, more time, more confidence, more support from others, more certainty about the outcome. And while they wait, opportunities move on, and life continues passing by, day after day after day. The perfect moment never comes for anyone. But the imperfect moment, the one where you are not fully ready, but you begin anyway, with what you have right now, that moment is always available. It is available to you right now, today, in this specific breath. Boldness is not the absence of fear. Boldness is action taken in the presence of fear. The person who moves forward, even when their hands are shaking, and their heart is pounding, and their mind is generating reasons to stop, is far more powerful than the person who waits in comfort for a fear that never fully disappears on its own. Fear is biological and deeply human. It is your nervous system responding to uncertainty and the genuinely unfamiliar. It is not a reliable sign that you are going to fail at what you are about to attempt. It is frequently a sign that what you are about to do genuinely matters to you, that it is real, significant, and worthy of your energy and your commitment. The ancient Stoics practiced what they called the premeditation of adversity. They would deliberately and calmly imagine the worst realistic outcome of a given situation, not to live in dread or catastrophic thinking, but to remove the excessive, and paralyzing power that imagined catastrophe holds over their daily decision-making. When you clearly and honestly examine the worst possible realistic outcome and genuinely recognize that you could survive it and recover from it and continue, the fear loses much of its paralyzing grip on your choices and your actions. You realize with real clarity that what you are afraid of is not nearly as catastrophic as your imagination has been making it out to be in the quiet hours when doubt is loudest. Ask yourself this, with complete honesty: what is the worst realistic outcome of taking the bold step you have been delaying? Write it down where you can see it clearly. Look at it without flinching or looking away. Then ask honestly, could I actually survive this outcome? Could I recover from this and continue forward with my life and my growth? In the vast majority of cases, if you are honest, the answer is clearly yes. The worst-case scenario, when actually examined with clear and honest eyes, rather than just feared in the abstract, is survivable. Knowing that you could genuinely handle the worst case gives you the real and practical freedom to pursue the best case without the paralyzing weight of imagined catastrophe pressing down on every decision you try to make. There is also the real and consistently ignored cost of inaction to consider in full, and this is a cost most people never properly account for. When you delay action out of fear or an endless search for perfect readiness, you are not staying safely in a neutral and harmless position. You are actively paying a price every single day of delay. You are paying it in lost time that cannot be recovered no matter what you do later, in missed growth that would have come from the experience of actually doing the thing, in the slow and painful erosion of your own confidence that comes from watching yourself choose avoidance over action, again and again, until avoidance becomes the deeply ingrained habit and inaction becomes your default response to any significant opportunity. Inaction has consequences that are just as real and just as costly as the consequences of failed action. The crucial difference is that failed action teaches you something genuinely valuable and moves you forward. Inaction teaches you nothing and leaves you exactly where you are, except with less time remaining to do something meaningful with your one life. Think of every act of bold action as a direct signal you are sending to yourself about who you are becoming. Every time you act in spite of not feeling ready, you send yourself a clear and accumulating message: I trust my capacity to figure things out as I go. I do not need everything to be perfect or certain before I begin. I am not the kind of person who waits for external permission to pursue what matters to me and what I believe I am here to do. This message, repeated consistently through repeated action over time, becomes a core belief about your own identity and your own capability. And that belief becomes the engine of a life that is actively and deliberately lived, rather than passively and reluctantly endured. Start small, if you genuinely need to, but start now, and not at some future point. The size of your first step is far less important than the simple act of beginning today, rather than tomorrow, or next week, or when conditions improve. If you want to start a business, take one concrete and visible action this week. Write the first real page of the plan. Have the first genuine conversation with someone already in that space. If you want to improve your health, move your body today for 20 minutes, not next Monday, today. If you want to repair an important relationship that matters to you, send the first message today. Make the first call. Take one step toward what you have been avoiding, and watch what becomes possible from that single act of beginning. There is a concept in physics called inertia, the tendency of an object at rest to remain at rest until acted upon by an outside force. Human beings experience a deeply real psychological version of this same law in their own lives. When you are at rest, when you are in avoidance mode and waiting for readiness, it takes real and deliberate force to begin moving again toward what matters. But once you begin moving, momentum builds naturally and powerfully. The second step becomes genuinely easier than the first was. The third becomes easier than the second. Getting started is almost always the hardest part of any meaningful pursuit, and the longer you delay the start, the harder starting becomes, because every day of delay reinforces the habit of delay and makes the gap between you and the starting line feel wider and more daunting than it actually is. You must also make genuine and lasting peace with the reality of imperfection in action. When you begin before you are fully ready, your first attempts will not be perfect, and they are not supposed to be. They are not evidence of inadequacy. Your first piece of work may be rough and unpolished. Your first conversation may be awkward and uncertain. Your first launch may fall significantly short of your own expectations for what it should be. This is not evidence of failure. This is the natural and necessary process of growth and learning. Every expert in every field in the world was once a complete beginner who was willing to be imperfect and even embarrassed at something in order to eventually become genuinely good at it through consistent practice and honest learning. The boldness you are looking for is not going to arrive one morning fully formed without any effort on your part. It grows inside you through the daily practice of doing hard, uncertain, and uncomfortable things without waiting for complete comfort to arrive first. It grows through choosing action over avoidance, again and again, in small moments and large ones, on easy days, and on the days when every part of you wants to stay still, until acting boldly becomes not the exceptional and extraordinary thing, but the natural and expected thing for you. That is the person you are choosing to build through every step you take before you feel fully ready. And that person, built through consistent acts of bold and imperfect action, is the version of you that the life you want actually requires. What would become possible in your life if you committed genuinely today to taking bold action before you felt completely ready? How many doors have remained closed, not because they were locked against you, but simply because you never knocked? How many versions of yourself have gone unlived and unexpressed because you were waiting for a readiness that was never going to come on its own, without action to create it? The boldness you are looking for is not somewhere out there waiting to be found. It is built inside you through every courageous step you take into the unfamiliar and uncertain territory of genuine growth. Take that step today, before you feel ready, and begin building the life that only bold and consistent action can create. Real boldness is forged not in the absence of fear, but in its consistent and deliberate presence. Every time you take action while feeling uncertain or unprepared, you prove to yourself through direct experience that uncertainty is survivable. You prove that the discomfort of moving into the unknown is temporary and manageable, and not as destructive as your imagination made it. And with each proof you accumulate through real action, the threshold of what you are genuinely willing to attempt rises naturally and without much effort, because you have the evidence now. The bold person is simply someone who has taken enough imperfect steps to know, at a deep and personal level, that imperfect steps still move you measurably forward, and that moving forward imperfectly is infinitely better than standing still and waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. Many people are not afraid of failure itself, as much as they are afraid of what failure would mean about them in the eyes of other people. The social fear of being seen to try and fall publicly short is real and deeply rooted in human psychology and human social instinct. But here is what that fear ultimately costs you when you obey it, without question. It costs you the entire expression of your potential. The opinions of people who never attempted anything meaningful and difficult themselves should not be the deciding factor in whether you attempt something meaningful and difficult. The critics who watch from the sidelines have never bled on the field where the real work happens. Their comfort with watching others attempt is not wisdom or superiority. It is avoidance, wearing the comfortable costume of judgment and critique. The people you most respect and most admire did not reach their level by waiting until they were completely ready, or until other people approved of their attempts and validated their direction. They got there by starting imperfectly, failing forward repeatedly, with honest self-assessment, learning relentlessly from every experience, and continuing long after most people would have stopped and gone home, to the comfort of the familiar. You have that same fundamental human capacity. The only real question is whether you will use it consistently enough and long enough to discover what you are genuinely capable of when you stop waiting and start moving with full commitment. Chapter 4. Destroy the fears and doubts stopping your progress. Fear is the single most powerful and persistent force that keeps human beings from living the lives they are fully capable of living. Not lack of talent, not lack of resources or opportunity. Fear, doubt, the quiet but relentless voice that whispers not you, not now, not possible whenever you contemplate something significant and meaningful. That voice has cost more human potential than any external force in the entire history of human achievement. It has stolen more dreams, more careers, more relationships, and more moments of genuine living than poverty, failure, or difficult circumstances ever could. And the most devastating part of this reality is that this voice lives inside us. It is our own mind working systematically and persistently against our own life and our own best future. Understanding fear clearly starts with understanding what it actually is at its biological core. Fear is a response shaped by thousands of years of human evolution. It was designed and refined to protect you from physical danger, in a world where physical danger was constant and immediate and genuinely life-threatening. When early humans faced predators or competing tribes, the rush of fear kept them alive by sharpening their senses, flooding their body with adrenaline, and preparing them to fight or to run immediately. This system was brilliantly designed and absolutely essential for the world those early humans inhabited every single day. But the world most of us live in today is fundamentally different from that ancient world. We are not being chased by predators. Our physical survival is not genuinely threatened by the difficult conversation we need to have, the idea we want to share publicly, or the new path we want to pursue, despite its uncertainty. And yet our nervous system responds to those modern situations with the same biological alarm it would sound for a genuine physical threat to our life. The fear of rejection from someone we respect activates survival responses in the body. The fear of public failure floods the system with the same chemistry that would prepare us to physically run from real danger. This is why fear feels so overwhelmingly convincing and so physically real, even when the actual risk is genuinely small. You are not irrational or weak for feeling it, but you become permanently limited and constrained when you obey it, without any examination or challenge. The first and most important step in destroying fear is recognizing it clearly for what it truly is: a signal, not a stop sign. Fear is your body communicating that something you are about to do matters enough to register as uncertain and unfamiliar, that this situation is outside your current comfort zone, that there is genuine uncertainty ahead about the outcome. These are useful pieces of information worth acknowledging, but they are not commands you are required to obey. You can acknowledge the signal, understand what it is communicating about the situation, and then choose to move through it, rather than around it, or away from it, into permanent avoidance. Doubt is slightly different from fear, though they travel together constantly and reinforce each other. Where fear is primarily emotional and physical in its expression, doubt is more cognitive and narrative. It is the voice that questions your ability, your worthiness, and your right to want what you want. Who do you think you are to want that? What makes you think you can actually do this when others with more have failed? What if you try with everything you have and everyone watches you fall short? Doubt disguises itself expertly as reason and responsible caution. It presents itself as logic and realism, but in reality, doubt is almost always rooted not in genuine objective analysis of the situation, but in the stories you have absorbed from your past experiences, your environment, and other people's limited and often wrong opinions of what you are capable of. Doubt is borrowed thinking. It belongs to someone else, or to a version of you that no longer exists, and it is genuinely time to return what was never truly yours, to keep. One of the most powerful things you can do to begin genuinely destroying doubt is to trace it to its actual specific source. When you hear that doubtful inner voice speaking its familiar lines, stop and ask yourself honestly, where did this belief actually originate? Did someone specific tell you that you were not capable, or not smart enough, or not deserving of what you want? Did you try something once and it did not work out, and in that moment you decided that trying again was not worth the pain of another potential failure? Did you grow up in an environment where dreaming big was mocked, dismissed, or met with skepticism and discouragement? Tracing the root of your doubt does not automatically eliminate it immediately, but it fundamentally changes your relationship with it. When you see clearly that your doubt was given to you by a specific moment or a specific person from your past, you realize it is not the current truth of who you are. It is the echo of someone else's fear wearing your voice. You cannot wait until fear and doubt have fully disappeared before you take action on what matters to you. That is simply not how this works in practice. If you wait for the fear to completely disappear before taking the next step, you will literally wait forever. Fear does not leave before the action. It leaves because of the action, and through the action. Every time you face a specific fear and move through it deliberately and consciously, you teach your nervous system, through direct experience, that the threat it perceived was not as dangerous as it believed it to be. You create a new lived experience that directly contradicts the old fear, and over time, through repeated contradicting experiences, the fear weakens and its grip on your decisions loosens. This is the proven principle of exposure, used effectively in therapy for decades, because it genuinely works when applied with consistency. When you gently but consistently expose yourself to the specific things that genuinely frighten you, those things lose their power over your choices, gradually but reliably. If you fear public speaking, you do not overcome that fear by permanently avoiding every speaking opportunity and hoping the fear will somehow resolve itself through avoidance. You overcome it by speaking, again and again, in progressively more challenging situations, until the fear diminishes, because you have accumulated enough direct personal evidence that you can survive, adapt, and even thrive in those moments you previously avoided completely. Apply this principle to your own specific fears right now. Make a clear and honest list of the things that are currently holding you back from what you want, the conversations you are afraid to have, the risks you are afraid to take, the visibility you are afraid to step into, the opportunities you have been circling without ever fully committing to them. Then begin facing them one at a time, starting with the ones that feel most manageable, and building your confidence from there progressively. Each confrontation with a fear builds real and personal confidence. Each act of genuine courage, no matter how small it might seem in the moment, rewires your brain's understanding of what is actually possible and survivable for you. Become ruthlessly and consistently aware of the ways fear shows up, disguised as something more respectable and acceptable. Fear disguises itself as perfectionism, the insistence that everything must be exactly right and completely polished before you begin or before you share. It disguises itself as extended research, spending months and months preparing and gathering information before taking any real and tangible action. It disguises itself as practicality, telling yourself you are being responsible and wise and cautious, when in reality, you are being avoidant and stagnant. Learning to see through these disguises clearly and honestly is one of the most important and genuinely liberating skills you can develop on the journey toward the life you want and the person you know you are capable of becoming. There is also social fear to address directly, the deep and pervasive fear of what other people will think and say if you try and fall publicly short, if you stand out from the crowd in visible ways, if you change in ways that make people around you uncomfortable. This particular fear has quietly and effectively derailed more dreams and more meaningful pursuits than almost any other force. People stay in careers they genuinely dislike because they are terrified of being judged by people they respect for leaving something secure. They stay silent when they should speak because they fear the social disapproval of saying something controversial or different. They shrink themselves deliberately and consistently to fit the comfort of their social environment, trading their authentic potential for the temporary and shallow relief of fitting in and being accepted. Here is what you need to understand clearly. Most people are far too consumed by their own fears, their own doubts, and their own daily concerns to spend significant time and energy genuinely judging yours. And even those who do judge you for trying will forget about it long before you will. The discomfort of being judged is real, but temporary, and absolutely survivable. The pain and regret of a life lived entirely according to other people's approval is permanent and compounding. Choose the temporary discomfort of being seen, of being vulnerable in your attempts, of occasionally falling short publicly, over the permanent and deepening regret of a life and a potential that was never fully expressed, because you were too afraid of what someone else might say about it. Build a consistent daily practice of courage through small and repeated acts of deliberately choosing discomfort over avoidance. Courage is not a feeling you wait to experience before you act. It is a behavior you choose to practice, regardless of whether the feeling is present. Do one thing every day that genuinely pushes you even slightly beyond the comfortable and familiar edge of your current world. Have the conversation you have been putting off. Share the idea you have been keeping carefully to yourself. Apply for the opportunity you have been talking yourself out of, with a dozen reasonable-sounding excuses. Ask for what you actually need from someone who can help. Each small, deliberate act of choosing discomfort over avoidance expands the actual territory of what feels manageable and possible to you. Your comfort zone grows every single time you step outside of it with intention. Fear and doubt are not your permanent enemies. They are parts of you that need to be honestly understood, directly and consistently faced, and gradually retrained through the accumulated evidence of repeated courageous action. They will not destroy you. They never destroy the person who refuses to be ruled by them. The only thing that can truly and permanently diminish your life is the choice, repeated day after day and year after year, to let fear sit in the driver's seat of every important decision you face. That choice ends today. From this moment forward, fear is a signal you acknowledge, examine honestly, and then move past in the direction of what you have chosen to build with your one life. Build a consistent daily practice of courage through small and repeated acts of deliberately choosing discomfort over avoidance. Courage is not a feeling you wait to experience before you act. It is a behavior you choose to practice and repeat, regardless of whether the feeling of bravery is present or absent in the moment. Do one thing every day that genuinely pushes you even slightly beyond the comfortable and familiar edge of your current world. Have the conversation you have been avoiding. Share the idea you have been keeping carefully and protectively to yourself. Apply for the opportunity you have been talking yourself out of, with a dozen reasonable-sounding excuses. Ask for what you actually need from someone who can genuinely help you get it. Each small, deliberate act of choosing discomfort over avoidance expands the actual territory of what feels manageable and possible to you. Going forward, your comfort zone grows consistently and reliably every single time you step outside of it, with genuine intention and real commitment. Fear and doubt are not your permanent enemies, and they are not evidence of your inadequacy. They are parts of you that need to be honestly understood, directly and consistently faced, and gradually retrained through the accumulation of evidence from repeated courageous action. They will not destroy you if you refuse to let them make your decisions. The only thing that can truly and permanently diminish your life is the choice, repeated day after day and year after year, without examination, to let fear sit in the driver's seat of every important decision you face. That choice ends today. From this moment forward, fear is a signal you acknowledge, examine honestly, and then move deliberately past in the direction of what you have chosen to build with your one life. Chapter 5. Create powerful daily habits that build lasting success. If you want to understand honestly why your life looks exactly the way it does right now, do not look at your ambitions or your intentions. Do not look at your talent or your raw potential. Look instead at your daily habits, at what you actually do, consistently and automatically, every single day, without thinking much about it. Because what you do every single day, repeated without fail over months and years, is the direct and honest cause of where you end up in life, not where you occasionally do something extraordinary when the motivation strikes, where you consistently do something ordinary and often unglamorous, with reliable discipline. The extraordinary life is almost always built from ordinary habits, practiced with extraordinary consistency over a long enough period of time. This is a principle that most people understand intellectually, but very few truly internalize to the point where it actually changes their daily behavior in meaningful and lasting ways. Success is not an event. It is not the result of one massive inspired action, taken once in a while, when everything aligns perfectly. It is the result of small, consistent, often unglamorous actions, taken daily, without exception, regardless of how you feel, on any given morning. The athlete who wins the championship was not great on the specific day of the final match. They were great long before that day arrived, built steadily through hundreds of early morning practices that nobody watched, difficult training sessions when the body protested, and daily choices made deliberately for long-term performance rather than immediate short-term comfort. Your daily habits are the actual architecture of your life. Every habit you currently carry, every routine, every default behavior, every automatic response to your daily environment is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming over time. You cast those votes every single day, whether you are fully conscious of them or not. The question is not whether your habits are shaping you. They absolutely are, powerfully and constantly. The question is whether you are choosing the habits that shape you with deliberate intention or allowing random accumulated patterns to shape you entirely by comfortable default. The first step in building powerful daily habits is genuinely understanding how habits form in the brain. Every habit follows a three-part loop: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is what triggers the behavior and sets the loop in motion. The routine is the behavior itself, the action you take in response to the cue. The reward is what your brain receives from performing the behavior, which then reinforces the loop and makes you increasingly likely to repeat it automatically the next time the same cue appears. This loop runs largely on its own, once established, often without any meaningful conscious decision-making involved at all. Your brain loves efficiency above almost everything else, and habits are the brain's primary strategy for automating repeated behaviors so that conscious attention can be freed up for genuinely new challenges. This understanding gives you real and practical leverage, because if you know how the habit loop works, you can use that knowledge to deliberately build habits you want, and to systematically dismantle habits you do not want. To build a new habit, you need to attach it clearly to an existing reliable cue. Make the routine as small and simple as possible at the very beginning, and give yourself a genuine and satisfying reward that your brain will register as worth repeating. To break a bad habit, you need to identify the specific cue that triggers it. Disrupt that cue through deliberate environmental change, and replace the routine with something different that delivers a similar reward through a healthier and more supportive path. Before you build anything genuinely new, take an honest inventory of your current habits without judgment. Write down what you actually do in the first hour after waking up each morning, what you eat on most days without much deliberation, how you consistently spend your evenings, what your actual relationship with your phone looks like throughout the average day, how much of your week goes toward activities that genuinely build toward your defined goals versus activities that simply pass the time or actively work against your growth and energy. This inventory shows you the honest current design of your daily life in real and specific terms. Once you see it clearly without flinching, you can make real and informed decisions about what to keep, what to change, and what genuinely new elements to deliberately add. The keystone habit concept deserves careful attention here, because some habits have a disproportionate and far-reaching positive effect on the rest of your entire daily life. They are like the first domino that, when it falls, automatically knocks over a whole sequence of others that would otherwise stay standing. Regular physical exercise is the most extensively studied and documented keystone habit. When people consistently establish a daily exercise habit, they reliably report meaningful improvements in sleep quality, eating decisions, daily mood, sustained productivity, and even the quality of their personal relationships, without deliberately trying to change any of those other areas at the same time. The exercise creates an internal anchor of discipline and self-respect that quietly elevates everything else around it. Find your personal keystone habit and commit to it above everything else. It might be morning exercise. It might be daily journaling. It might be a consistent and protected bedtime or 10 minutes of morning meditation before the world demands your attention. Once you identify the one habit that seems to have the greatest positive ripple effect on the most other areas of your life, commit to it completely and consistently before attempting to add anything else. Master that one keystone first, and watch how it creates genuine space and momentum for other positive habits to grow naturally around it. The most common and most costly mistake people make when trying to build new habits is attempting to change too many things simultaneously. The excitement and motivation at the beginning of a new intention is powerful and real, but it leads people to design sweeping and dramatic transformations that require enormous daily effort from day one, when no real foundation exists yet. For a few days, or a week, the initial excitement carries the effort forward. Then life inevitably gets complicated and demanding in its normal ways. The required effort feels too large and unsustainable. The motivation fades, because motivation always fades eventually, and the habit collapses before it ever had a genuine chance to take root and become automatic and reliable. Sustainable habits are built on a foundation of consistency rather than intensity in the beginning. Start much smaller than you think you need to. If you want to build a daily reading habit, start with 5 pages a day, and not 50. If you want to build an exercise habit, start with 10 minutes and not 2 hours. If you want to build a meditation habit, start with 5 minutes and not 30. The goal in the beginning is not impressive visible transformation. The goal is daily repetition that builds an unbroken track record of showing up for yourself. That track record is the true foundation that everything lasting will eventually stand on. Environment design is one of the most powerful and most underused tools in habit building, and it deserves serious and practical attention. Your environment constantly cues your behavior throughout the day, usually without your conscious awareness at all. The presence of your phone on your desk directly cues distraction and checking during your work. The presence of unhealthy food readily available in your kitchen cues poor eating decisions. The presence of your workout clothes laid out on a chair the night before directly cues morning exercise before your still groggy mind has time to generate convincing arguments against it. You can dramatically, and measurably increase the likelihood of following through on the habits you want by deliberately designing your environment to make those habits the path of least resistance rather than the path of greatest effort. Remove friction systematically from good habits and deliberately add friction to bad ones. Put healthy food at the front of your refrigerator where you see it immediately. Put your running shoes next to your bed where you cannot miss them. Remove your most distracting apps from the home screen of your phone. Put your phone in another room during your most important focused work periods. Lay out tomorrow's gym clothes tonight, before you sleep. These environmental changes might seem almost trivially small when you make them, but they add up to genuinely massive differences in behavior over time, because they work with how your brain naturally operates, rather than constantly fighting against it. Track your habits consistently. A simple calendar where you mark off each day you successfully complete your chosen habit creates a visual chain that becomes its own powerful motivator over time. The genuine desire not to break that visible chain keeps you showing up on the difficult days when motivation is completely absent, and discipline alone must carry you. And it is on exactly those difficult, low-motivation, ordinary days that habits either take deeper and more permanent root or get quietly abandoned. Choose to show up on the hard days, on the days when you do not feel like it, on the days when something easier is calling, and you will discover that you are more genuinely capable of sustained discipline than you ever believed yourself to be. Your daily habits are building your future in real time, right now, today, in this specific day you are living. Every morning, you wake up with deliberate intention is a real investment in the person you are becoming. Every hour of focused and purposeful work is an investment. Every healthy and intentional choice is an investment. Every moment of genuine rest that serves your recovery is an investment. The returns on these investments do not arrive immediately or dramatically. They arrive over months and years, compounded steadily and quietly, into a life that looks and feels fundamentally and deeply different from the life you were living before you made the decision to be deliberately intentional about your daily behavior and your daily choices. You are not your moods on any given morning. You are not your motivation level when the alarm goes off. You are not your feelings about the weather or the traffic or the difficulty of the day ahead. You are your habits, the things you actually do consistently, regardless of how you feel. Build them with the care, the patience, the honesty, and the seriousness of someone who genuinely understands that every single day counts, every choice matters, and the small and often invisible actions of today are quietly and powerfully constructing the large and visible results of tomorrow. One final truth about habits deserves to be said clearly and without softening. The difference between the life you have right now and the life you want is not primarily a difference in talent, resources, or luck. It is almost always a difference in daily habits, practiced consistently over time. Two people can start from virtually identical circumstances and arrive at dramatically different places in life simply because of the daily habits they cultivated and maintained versus the ones they neglected or abandoned. Every single day, your habits are either building the life you want or maintaining the one you have settled for. There is no pause button, and there is no neutral position. The only question that matters today is whether the habits you are practicing right now are the ones that lead where you genuinely want to go. If they are, protect them with everything you have and extend them deliberately over time. If they are not, change them today, not tomorrow, today, with the same patience and the same commitment to consistency that you would bring to building anything that genuinely matters to you. Chapter 6. Master your focus and protect your energy every day. You have been given a finite amount of time on this earth. Alongside that finite time, you have been given a finite amount of energy, mental, emotional, and physical, that you can deploy each day before it must be replenished through rest and intentional recovery. These two resources, time and energy, are the fundamental raw material from which your life is built day by day, and how deliberately and intelligently you manage them, or how carelessly you allow them to be consumed and scattered by the demands, distractions, and noise of the world around you, will determine the quality, the depth, and the ultimate direction of everything you do, build, and become over the course of your life. Most people treat their attention like open, unguarded territory, free and available for anyone or anything to wander into, at any time, without any kind of invitation or permission. Their phones buzz, and they look immediately and automatically without thinking. An email arrives and they read it the moment it appears, regardless of what they were in the middle of doing. Social media offers an endless and algorithmically optimized feed of stimulation, and they scroll for minutes that quietly become hours, consuming content that adds nothing meaningful to their life, their growth, or their goals. By the end of most days, they feel genuinely and deeply exhausted, but cannot point to a single piece of meaningful progress they actually made. This is not laziness or lack of effort. This is what inevitably happens when focus is consistently surrendered, rather than actively and deliberately defended. This is the invisible but very real daily tax of living in a world that has been carefully engineered to fragment and monetize human attention. Attention is your most valuable daily currency, more valuable than money in many respects, because money can be rebuilt and recovered when it is lost, but time, and the moments it contains, cannot be recovered once they have been spent. More valuable than raw talent, because unfocused talent consistently produces far less than focused and directed mediocrity applied consistently over time. The person who can direct their full and genuine attention to one important thing at a time, for extended and protected periods, and repeat that discipline daily without exception, has an advantage in life that almost nothing else available to them can come close to replicating in its practical impact. The science of focus is clear and consistent in what it tells us. The human brain is not actually capable of true multitasking, in the way most people believe they are practicing it. What we call multitasking is in reality rapid task switching, moving attention quickly and repeatedly between multiple things in rapid succession. And every single switch comes with a measurable and real cognitive cost that most people never account for. Every time your brain must reorient from one task to another, it loses momentum, it loses depth of engagement, and it takes time, often several minutes, to return to a genuine state of deep and productive work. If you are switching your attention dozens of times every hour, which most people in the modern environment are doing routinely, you are spending an enormous and largely unrecognized portion of each day in transition and reorientation, rather than in the productive depth where real work, real progress, and real creative output actually happen. Deep work, the ability to focus without any meaningful distraction on a cognitively demanding task for a genuinely sustained period, is one of the most valuable and simultaneously most rare skills in the modern world. Every notification, every platform, every digital product you use daily is designed and optimized by brilliant and highly paid minds, specifically to pull your focus away from what you deliberately chose to be doing and redirect it toward what those products want to show you next, to maximize your engagement and your time spent with them. Reclaiming your focus from this environment is not a passive thing that happens naturally on its own. It is an active daily practice that requires deliberate decision-making, consistent boundary setting, and thoughtful environmental design. Begin by creating genuinely protected blocks of deep work time in your daily schedule, where you treat them as non-negotiable appointments with your most important work. These are periods, ideally 2 to 4 hours in duration, during which you do not check your phone for any reason, do not respond to any messages regardless of who they are from, do not browse anything on the internet that is not directly necessary for your work, and do not allow any other interruptions to pull your attention away. You use this protected time exclusively for the most important, highest leverage work in your life, the work that actually moves you toward the life you defined in Chapter 1, the work that requires genuine and sustained thought, creativity, and mental effort, the real work that no one else can do for you. To protect these deep work blocks effectively in the real world, you must communicate their importance clearly with the people in your environment, and also design your physical space to fully support focused work, rather than constant distraction. Phone on silent and completely out of sight, or in another room where you cannot see or hear it. Only the essential browser tabs or tools necessary for the specific task open in front of you. A clear and uncluttered workspace, because visual clutter consistently creates cognitive clutter and mental noise, even when you are not consciously aware of it. Build the actual conditions where focus is the natural path of least resistance, rather than the constant uphill battle it becomes in a poorly designed environment full of competing stimuli. Start with shorter focus blocks and build their duration gradually and deliberately over weeks. If you currently struggle to sustain genuine undistracted focus for more than 10 to 15 minutes, begin with 30-minute sessions and extend them progressively as your capacity for sustained attention grows. The ability to sustain deep focus is absolutely trainable through consistent and deliberate practice. Your attention span responds to deliberate training, just as any other human capacity does. Every time you resist an urge to check something during a focused work session, every time you bring your wandering mind back to the task at hand, without judgment or self-criticism, you are actively strengthening the mental capacity for sustained and productive attention. Energy management is the equally critical other side of this equation, and it cannot be separated from the quality of your focus. You can protect perfectly designed blocks of focused time in your schedule and still fail to use them effectively if your energy is fundamentally depleted before you ever sit down to work. Energy is not infinite or constant throughout the day. It fluctuates based on sleep quality, nutrition, physical movement, accumulated mental load, and emotional state. Understanding your personal energy rhythms and intentionally scheduling your most demanding and important work during your natural peak energy periods is one of the most intelligent and immediately practical decisions you can make about how you structure your day. Most people experience their highest natural peak of mental energy and cognitive clarity in the hours following their morning routine. During this window, whatever time it falls for you specifically, your thinking is sharpest, your creative capacity is most accessible, and your ability to do complex, sustained work is at its peak. If you consistently spend this peak window reading email, scrolling through social media, or handling low-value administrative tasks that could wait, you have wasted your most precious and non-renewable daily resource on your least important activities. Guard your peak energy hours with the same seriousness and the same intentionality you would bring to protecting your most valuable physical possession. Sleep is the absolute foundation on which all meaningful energy management rests. There is no supplement, no productivity technique, no amount of caffeine, and no motivational content that can fully compensate for the compounding effects of chronic sleep deprivation on your cognitive and physical performance. When you are consistently under-rested, every dimension of your performance degrades simultaneously and measurably. Decision-making quality drops. Emotional regulation weakens significantly. Creative capacity diminishes. Physical performance degrades. Reaction time slows. The real cost of poor sleep is not simply feeling tired in the morning. It is a fundamental and measurable reduction in your daily ability to operate as the person you are genuinely trying to become and build. Treat sleep as the non-negotiable professional and personal priority that it genuinely is. Create a consistent sleep schedule and protect it as seriously as you protect your most important work. Design an intentional wind-down routine in the hour before bed that signals clearly to your nervous system that the active demands of the day are ending and genuine rest is coming. Reduce the intensity and brightness of screens. Lower the light in your physical environment. Give your mind and body the consistent nightly signal that recovery is about to begin. The quality and consistency of your sleep is one of the single highest leverage investments you can make in your daily performance and your long-term capacity to pursue what genuinely matters to you at a sustained and effective level. Physical movement belongs in this conversation as an essential element and not an optional addition for when time conveniently permits. Regular exercise measurably increases the availability of neurotransmitters that support sustained mood, deep focus, and reliable daily motivation. It improves sleep quality significantly over time. It reduces the physical accumulation and expression of stress in your body and mind. Even 20 to 30 minutes of moderate intentional daily movement produces measurable and real improvements in cognitive performance and emotional resilience throughout the rest of the day. Moving your body consistently is not separate from your pursuit of your most important goals. It is one of the primary and foundational things that makes you genuinely capable of pursuing them with sustained energy and real effectiveness. Your focus and your energy are the two most powerful levers available to you for building the life you have defined and chosen. When managed deliberately and consistently, they can move your life in any direction you genuinely choose. Guard them with full and serious intention. Invest them in what genuinely matters to you. Protect them from the constant and well-engineered forces working to scatter and consume them. And watch how fundamentally different your days and your outcomes become when the best of what you have is directed with full intention toward the most important work of your one life. One thing that often goes unsaid in conversations about focus and energy is the importance of genuine and intentional recovery as a deliberate and planned part of your schedule, rather than something you do reluctantly when you collapse from exhaustion. High performance in any area of life is not a continuous and uninterrupted sprint. It is a rhythm of full engagement, followed by real and complete recovery, repeated over time with deliberate intention. Athletes understand this at a deep and practical level. They train intensely, and then they recover completely. And it is in the recovery that the actual strengthening happens. Your mind and your body work the same way. If you try to sustain maximum output without deliberate and adequate recovery, you will eventually hit a wall that no amount of motivation or discipline can overcome. Build recovery into your schedule as a non-negotiable element of high performance, rather than as a guilty indulgence or an admission of weakness. Your focus will be sharper for it. Your energy will be more sustainable because of it, and your long-term output will be greater as a direct result of the recovery you allowed and protected. Protect your energy and your focus every single day, as though everything you are building depends on them, because it genuinely does. The compound effect of daily focused and energized effort, directed consistently toward what matters most to you, is one of the most powerful forces available to you. It does not produce dramatic overnight transformations. It produces something more valuable, steady, sustainable, undeniable progress that accumulates over months and years into a life that looks and feels fundamentally different from the life you were living before you made the decision to protect and direct your most important resources with full intention and daily discipline. Chapter 7. Choose people who believe in and push you forward. One of the most consistently and severely underestimated forces actively shaping your life right now is the specific company you keep day after day. The people you spend the most consistent time with are not simply people you enjoy being around in a casual and uncomplicated way. They are the living environment in which your beliefs, your daily habits, your standards for yourself, and your deepest sense of what is genuinely possible for you are constantly and invisibly formed and reinforced. Whether you are fully aware of this dynamic or not, you are absorbing the attitudes, behaviors, expectations, energy levels, and underlying beliefs of the people closest to you every single day, without exception. You inevitably and consistently rise to the level of your environment over time, and your closest relationships are among the most defining and powerful parts of that environment. Think carefully and honestly about the people in your current inner circle. When you share a new idea or a new ambition with them, what is their first response? Do they light up with genuine interest and ask thoughtful questions about how they can support you? Or do they immediately and reflexively begin identifying reasons why it probably will not work for you specifically? When you talk about wanting significantly more from your life and your career and your daily experience, do they genuinely encourage you to reach for what you want? Or do they subtly make you feel like wanting more than you currently have is somehow unrealistic, ungrateful, or presumptuous? When you are struggling with something genuinely difficult, do they offer you real and honest perspective, along with genuine support? Or do they join you in the struggle and validate every reason you might have to stay exactly where you are and settle for what you already have? The honest answers to these questions tell you a great deal about the environment in which your future is currently being shaped, and either expanded or constrained. This is not about viewing your relationships as purely transactional exchanges, where people earn their place by contributing measurably to your productivity. It is about clearly understanding a principle of human nature that research consistently confirms. Energy is genuinely and powerfully contagious between people who spend significant time together, and direction in life is largely caught and absorbed from the people around us, rather than being independently generated in isolation. You cannot spend your days consistently surrounded by people who have collectively given up on meaningful growth, who accept limitations without questioning them, and who speak about dreams as foolish indulgences, and expect to remain relentlessly and independently driven toward your own important goals. The law of association is a real and powerful force operating in every human life. Who you consistently spend your time with, you gradually but inevitably become more like. The first honest audit you must perform is of your current significant relationships. Not to immediately and dramatically cut people out of your life, which is rarely the wisest answer and is often genuinely unnecessary, but to clearly see, with accurate and unfiltered eyes, the actual impact that each significant relationship has on your daily energy, your self-belief, and your momentum toward what you have defined and chosen to pursue. Ask yourself honestly, and without defensiveness, does spending real and consistent time with this person make me more hopeful or less hopeful about what is genuinely possible for me? Does this relationship bring out the most capable and committed version of me, or a more fearful and limited version? Do I leave interactions with this person feeling genuinely energized and forward-facing, or feeling consistently drained and doubtful? These questions require real honesty and real courage in the answering. Some relationships will be clearly and powerfully positive in their consistent impact on your growth and direction. These are the people who genuinely and demonstrably believe in what you are building, who celebrate your real progress without jealousy or competition, who hold you accountable with genuine care and honest feedback, and who personally model the kind of discipline, integrity, and consistent effort you want to embody in your own life. These people are irreplaceable in a meaningful and practical way. They are not simply friends or colleagues in a casual sense. They are part of the real foundation of your growth and your belief in what is possible for you. Invest in these relationships deeply and with full consistency. Show up for these people the way they show up for you. Nurture these connections actively, as you would nurture any genuinely critical and valuable asset in your life, because in real and practical terms, that is precisely what they are to your growth. Other relationships will be more complicated to assess and more delicate to navigate, and they are worth thinking through carefully and honestly, rather than dismissing or avoiding. These are the people who may genuinely love you and care about your well-being in their own way, but whose energy and settled thinking consistently pull you in a backward direction without their fully understanding that effect. People who mean well, but whose own unexamined fears and accumulated limitations cause them to inadvertently discourage you from the very things you most need to pursue. The wisest way to handle these relationships is not abrupt dismissal or dramatic confrontation, but the conscious and careful limitation of their influence on your most important decisions and your most significant aspirations. You can love someone genuinely and still choose not to share your developing goals with them if sharing consistently produces discouragement rather than support. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your deepest dreams and your most vulnerable aspirations. Share those with people who will genuinely fuel them. And then there are the relationships you must actively and intentionally build that do not yet fully exist in your life, but that your growth genuinely requires. The mentor who is 10 or more years ahead of you on the specific path you have chosen to walk, and who has learned things about that path that you could not discover any other way. The peer group of people who are currently operating at the level you are actively working toward. People whose daily standards and expectations will pull your own upward simply by proximity. The community of individuals who share your genuine values and your authentic commitment to growth, and who understand the challenges you are facing from direct experience. These relationships do not usually fall into your lap through luck or convenience. They require you to put yourself deliberately in the physical and digital rooms, the events, the communities, and the conversations, where people who think and operate at this level actually gather and engage. Be consistently the kind of person you are looking for in others, because the most reliable and sustainable way to attract relationships that genuinely elevate your life is to become someone that people who think and operate at a high level naturally want to spend real time with. Develop genuinely interesting and deep skills and perspectives that make you valuable and stimulating in conversation. Be deeply reliable and consistently trustworthy in every commitment you make, both large and small. Show up fully and without reservation for the people you already have in your life who have earned that kind of presence from you. Ask genuinely good questions when you engage with people who know more than you, and listen with real attention to understand rather than to quickly respond. Celebrate other people's victories and progress without jealousy or the diminishing comparisons that come from insecurity. Add real and specific value in every room you enter and every interaction you have. These qualities attract quality people and meaningful relationships more reliably than any other strategy or approach. Curate your digital environment with the same care and intentionality you bring to curating your physical relationships and your physical environment. In the connected world we currently live in, the people whose thinking and energy you are consistently exposed to online have a genuine and measurable impact on your beliefs and your sense of what is possible, even if you never meet them in person. Follow people who challenge your thinking and remind you of what genuinely ambitious and disciplined people accomplish. Unfollow and mute sources that consistently drain your energy. Fill your mind with comparison, or make the kind of life you are building feel implausible or unreasonable. Use the internet as a deliberate tool for connecting with the ideas and the people that expand your sense of the possible, rather than allowing it to be used on you as a tool of distraction and self-doubt. Your relationships are not incidental or peripheral to your success and your growth. They are integral to both, in ways that are profound and often invisible until you deliberately examine them. Choose your closest relationships with genuine and thoughtful care. Nurture the ones that lift you with consistent and sincere investment. Have the courage to make necessary changes when the social environment you are living in is consistently and significantly working against the life you are deliberately and seriously working to build. Because the life you are building deserves the company of people who genuinely believe it is possible and who push you to keep going when you start to doubt it yourself. One final and important dimension of choosing supportive relationships deserves to be addressed directly. Not all relationships that limit you are ones you need to permanently exit or dramatically change. Sometimes, the most important shift is internal rather than external, a change in how much weight and influence you give to certain voices and certain opinions when you are making important decisions about your life and your direction. The person whose opinion you have been allowing to veto your most important ambitions may not need to be removed from your life entirely. You may simply need to stop consulting them on decisions that require a level of belief in possibility that they do not currently have and may never develop. That is not unkind. It is wise. Reserve your most important decisions and your deepest dreams for the people in your life who have the genuine capacity and the genuine willingness to believe in what you are building. Everyone else can stay in your life in whatever way genuinely serves both of you, but they do not need a seat at the most important table. The most important relationship in your life, the one that determines the quality of every other relationship you have, is the relationship you have with yourself, the standards you hold for yourself, the commitments you keep to yourself, the belief you carry about your own worth and your own capacity. All of these flow outward into how you show up in every other relationship you have. When you invest consistently in your own growth, your own clarity, and your own authentic development, you bring a better and more capable person to every relationship you are part of. You become genuinely more interesting, more reliable, more present, and more capable of genuine contribution. That investment in yourself is not selfish. It is the foundation of everything you will ever genuinely contribute to anyone else. Build that foundation daily, and with the same care and intention you bring to building everything else. Choose your relationships the way you choose every other important investment in your life, with care, with intention, and with a clear understanding of what genuinely serves the person you are becoming and the life you are building. The people around you are not just company. They are environment, and environment shapes everything. Choose yours deliberately. Nurture the relationships that lift you with consistent and sincere investment, and have the quiet but firm courage to reduce the influence of relationships that consistently and measurably work against the direction you have chosen. Your greatest life is not built in isolation, but it is not built in the wrong company either. Surround yourself with the right people, and build the kind of relationships that make everything else in this book more possible and more sustainable over time. Chapter 8. Rise stronger every time life pushes you down hard. There is a single question that defines each person's life trajectory, more powerfully and more accurately than almost any other factor that exists. Not where you were born, not where you went to school, or what advantages you started with. Not how talented you were from the beginning, or what resources you had access to. The question is this: how do you respond when things go genuinely and significantly wrong? And things will go genuinely and significantly wrong for every human being alive. Plans will fail, despite careful and thorough preparation. People will disappoint you despite your genuine trust in them. Opportunities will collapse at the worst possible moment, despite your best efforts and your real investment. Health will challenge you in ways you did not anticipate and did not ask for. Loss will find you in ways that cannot be fully prepared for. Life, by its fundamental and irreducible nature, contains a steady and unavoidable rhythm of real difficulty woven through its genuine gifts. The people who build extraordinary and meaningful lives are not the ones who somehow manage to avoid or escape difficulty. They are the ones who learned, through practice and through deliberate choice, to rise consistently every time life knocked them down hard. Resilience is not a fixed personality trait you were either fortunate enough to be born with or permanently without. It is a learnable skill, developed through experience, built through conscious and deliberate response to adversity, and strengthened through the practice of beliefs and habits that enhance your capacity to recover from difficulty. Every difficult experience you have lived through and survived up to this exact moment has already been building and training you for the challenges that lie ahead. You are more genuinely resilient than you currently believe yourself to be. And that resilience can be consciously and deliberately developed into one of the most defining and powerful strengths of your entire life, when you choose to cultivate it intentionally. The first principle of rising after being knocked down is allowing yourself to fully and honestly process what happened, without rushing past the emotional reality of it. Many people, in their sincere and genuine attempt to appear strong and to return quickly to productivity, suppress the natural emotional response to genuine hardship. They push the grief, the anger, the deep disappointment, and the fear down beneath the surface of their daily performance, and attempt to return immediately to normalcy, as though nothing significant happened. This does not create resilience. It creates internal pressure that must eventually find another outlet and expression. Unprocessed emotion does not simply disappear or resolve itself over time through avoidance. It finds other expression through chronic stress, through emotional numbness, through difficulty in relationships, through behaviors that numb rather than genuinely heal. Allowing yourself to feel what a hard experience genuinely makes you feel is not weakness and should never be mistaken for it. It is the opposite of weakness. It is the honest acknowledgement of your full and complete humanity in all of its complexity. Give yourself real and specific permission to feel a real loss, to sit honestly with genuine frustration after a genuine and painful failure, to acknowledge the real weight of a genuinely hard season without performing a strength you do not yet have in this specific moment. But also give yourself a clear and intentional boundary and a conscious decision point about what you will do next. Feel it fully and without suppression. And then, when you are genuinely ready to move, make the deliberate and courageous choice to begin moving forward. Not because the pain has completely disappeared, but because you have clearly decided that your future is more important than remaining indefinitely in the wound that the past has left. The Stoics practiced what they called amor fati, the active and intentional love of fate, not passive, helpless acceptance of whatever life brings and calls it strength, but an active and conscious embrace of reality, as it actually and honestly is, including its most difficult and painful elements, as the exact and irreplaceable material from which a genuinely great life is built over time. What stands in the way becomes the way forward when you choose to see it that way. Every obstacle, every setback, every devastating disappointment contains within it something that will ultimately serve your growth and deepen your real capacity if you choose to engage with it rather than be destroyed by it. Not because suffering is inherently good or desirable, but because how you choose to respond to suffering can shape you into the most powerful and most genuinely human version of yourself that you are capable of becoming through the whole arc of your life. Practical recovery from significant setbacks begins with two essential steps that most people overlook in the chaos of the moment. First, a deliberate and patient return to your non-negotiable daily fundamentals. Second, a clear and manageable decision about the immediate next step, not the entire recovery plan, not the full solution to all the problems, just the one specific action you can take today to move even slightly forward. When a significant setback has pulled you off course and left you feeling disoriented, the fastest and most reliable path back to functional stability is returning to the daily habits and routines that anchor your life at its foundation. Get your sleep right. Move your body even when it is the last thing you feel like doing. Eat in a way that supports your energy and your clarity. Follow your morning routine. Show up for the basic structure of your day, even when all motivation has temporarily vanished and everything feels pointless. These fundamentals do not cure the pain of real loss or real failure, but they are the stable and reliable platform from which genuine recovery becomes possible. Once your fundamentals are restored and you have your footing back, Identify the single most important next step you can take today. Not the complete and perfect solution to everything. Just the one action that moves you forward, even incrementally. Setbacks feel overwhelming and immobilizing precisely because we instinctively try to solve everything simultaneously, rather than taking the recovery process one deliberate and manageable step at a time. Break recovery into the smallest possible and genuinely manageable steps. Take them in sequence without rushing. Each genuine step, no matter how modest it appears from where you are standing, generates real momentum. And momentum, once it begins building, carries you further than you could see from the ground where you started. Build an active and personally specific list of your past recoveries from difficult experiences. Think back honestly and specifically, across your entire life, to the hardest moments you have genuinely faced and then survived. The moments where you were completely certain you could not get through what was in front of you, but you did get through. The losses that seemed entirely unsurvivable at the time, but you survived them and continued your life. The failures that felt absolutely permanent and final, but from which you eventually recovered and moved forward. This list is real and personal evidence, specific, honest, undeniable evidence that you are the kind of person who rises from difficulty. When the next significant and painful thing comes into your life, and it will come, return to this list. Let it remind you clearly and specifically of what you have already demonstrably proved about your own capacity to survive, recover, and continue. There is also the matter of the story you tell yourself about what happened and what it means about you and your future. Human beings do not experience events directly. We experience the meaning we assign to events, and the story we tell about what they mean for our lives going forward. And the story you choose to tell about your hardship will either become a prison that keeps you stuck in the role of victim, or a platform that launches you forward into new and greater capability. The story of permanent victimhood keeps you locked in place. The story of a person being tested and building strength through difficulty propels you forward through the same exact circumstances. Choose your story with full awareness, not because it erases what happened, but because it determines what happens next. Hard times do not reveal a fixed and permanent truth about your capacity or your worth. They reveal who you have actively built yourself to be up to this point, and they simultaneously invite you to continue building more capability, more wisdom, and more genuine strength through the experience. Rise, not just because you have no other choice, but because every single time you choose to rise after being knocked down hard, you are adding another real and tested layer to the construction of the most capable, most resilient, and most genuinely powerful version of yourself that has ever existed. That person is built in the moments of recovery and return, not in the moments of ease and comfort. Keep rising, every time, without exception. One thing worth remembering clearly as you navigate the difficult seasons that will inevitably come is that the speed of your recovery is not a measure of your strength or your character. Genuine recovery from real and significant difficulty takes as long as it takes, and forcing the timeline because you believe you should be doing better faster by some external standard is itself a form of self-cruelty that slows the real process. What matters is not how fast you recover, but whether you are genuinely recovering, whether you are moving, however slowly, in the direction of rebuilding, and not in the direction of deeper collapse or permanent avoidance. Some recoveries are swift, because the difficulty was acute, and the resources available for recovery were strong. Some recoveries are long, because the wound was deep, and the rebuilding required is substantial. Both kinds are valid. Both kinds are survivable. Both kinds can ultimately produce something in you that is more capable and more genuinely resilient than what existed before the difficulty arrived. Give yourself the full time that genuine recovery requires. Maintain your fundamental daily practices throughout the process, and trust that you are building something real even in the slowest and most discouraging periods of getting back up. Rise. Every time. Not because it is easy, or because you always have the energy for it in the moment. Not because the pain has gone away, or because the path is clear, but because rising is what you have decided to do with every difficulty you face. Because rising is the practice that builds the kind of character that makes a genuinely meaningful life possible. Because every time you rise, you prove to yourself that you are the kind of person who rises, and that proof becomes the foundation for everything you attempt and everything you build in the months and years that follow the moment you got back up. The strength you are building through every recovery, through every moment of choosing to rise when staying down would be easier, is not just personal. It is transferable. Every person who watches you rise from something genuinely difficult and continue with purpose and commitment is receiving something valuable from your example. Your resilience has a reach that extends beyond your own life and your own story. The people around you who are facing their own difficult seasons are watching how you respond to yours, whether you know it or not. Rise not just for yourself, but for what your rising makes possible in the people who are paying attention to how you live. Your story of getting back up matters more than you know. Every setback you have ever survived is already part of your story. Every moment you chose to get back up rather than stay down is already woven into who you are. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. You arrived here by surviving every single thing that tried to stop you, and by continuing to move, even when continuing was the hardest thing available to you. That is not a small thing. That is the defining quality of a life that matters. Keep rising. Always, without exception. Not because it is easy, but because it is who you have already proven yourself to be. Every time life tested you, and you chose to get back up one more time. Chapter 9. Commit to lifelong growth, and never stop improving yourself. There is a deeply human and deeply costly tendency to treat personal growth as a temporary and finite phase of life, rather than a permanent and defining commitment. Something you pursue intensely during difficult periods, or in the early years of adulthood, when everything is still forming, and the sense of possibility is still wide open, and then gradually set aside, once life settles into familiar rhythms and comfortable routines. Many people unconsciously operate as though at some definite and identifiable point in their adult lives, the real work of becoming is essentially finished and behind them, as though they have arrived at their final form and can now focus their energy simply on maintaining what they have already built. This is not just a missed opportunity of profound proportion. It is a slow, but certain, and compounding form of active decline. Because in the context of a living, changing, and aging human being, genuine maintenance without continued growth is not actually possible. You are either growing or you are diminishing. There is no stable and neutral middle ground that holds forever. The commitment to lifelong growth is ultimately, and most essentially, a commitment to staying genuinely alive in the fullest and most complete sense of that phrase throughout your entire life. Not just biologically alive in the technical sense, but intellectually curious about ideas and questions you have not yet explored, emotionally expanding in your capacity for depth and genuine connection, physically capable and active in ways that continue to serve your life, and deepening in character and wisdom and genuine understanding right up until your very last breath. This is not an exhausting or anxiety-producing proposition when you fully understand it. It is one of the most energizing and sustaining commitments a human being can make to themselves. The people who genuinely maintain this commitment throughout their lives do not look tired by the passing of years. They look lit from within by it. There is a specific and unmistakable quality of genuine aliveness in them that does not dim as they age, because they are continuously and deliberately feeding the part of themselves that thrives on real challenge, genuine learning, and meaningful expansion of who they are and what they understand. The foundation of lifelong growth is an insatiable and genuine appetite for learning that never fully satisfies itself, and never should. Not learning as an obligation or a performance you put on for the benefit of others. Not learning because you feel guilty about what you do not yet know, but learning as one of the most reliable and enduring pleasures available to a human being who has genuinely cultivated the taste for it. There are people in their 70s and 80s who read voraciously and with genuine delight, who remain intellectually curious about new ideas and unfamiliar questions, who ask far more questions than they make confident statements about, who light up visibly and genuinely when someone introduces them to a concept or a perspective or a field of knowledge they have never encountered before. And there are people in their 30s and 40s who have already effectively closed their minds to new input and new challenge, who have decided that they essentially know what they need to know to get through their days, who treat new information as a potential threat to existing certainties rather than as an invitation to honestly expand and update their understanding. The difference between these two kinds of people is not primarily intelligence or circumstance. It is a commitment, made daily and renewed daily, to stay open and hungry and growing. Read with genuine intention and real and specific consistency. Make reading a daily non-negotiable, not something you do when you happen to have time, because you will never happen to have time for the things you have not made non-negotiable. Even 15 to 20 pages per day, maintained consistently, adds up to 15 or more meaningful books completed per year. And 15 genuinely important and well-chosen books per year, sustained over a decade, represents a level of ongoing self-education and expanding perspective that most people never accumulate across their entire adult lives. Read deliberately across multiple disciplines, and not only within the narrow confines of your current professional field. Read biography and philosophy. Read science and history. Read business and psychology, and the accounts of people who lived radically different lives from yours. Allow different areas of knowledge to cross-pollinate in your thinking, because the most powerful and most original insights almost always emerge from the unexpected intersection of two apparently unrelated fields of understanding or experience. Reflection is equally important to learning, and far too often neglected in the busyness of daily life. Information received without genuine reflection is ultimately just noise that passes through your mind without leaving anything meaningful behind. When you take deliberate and regular time to sit quietly with what you have recently learned, to ask yourself honestly how it applies to your specific life and specific situation, what it genuinely changes about your current thinking or your current approach, and what it concretely invites you to do differently or better, you transform raw information into something that actually changes you in lasting ways. Journaling is among the most powerful and accessible tools available for this kind of deep and personal reflection. A consistent journaling practice of even 10 minutes per day forces your mind to process, rather than simply consume, to synthesize real meaning from experience, rather than merely accumulate facts and ideas that pass through without sticking. Seek honest and specific feedback relentlessly from people who know your work and whose judgment you genuinely respect. The person who grows fastest and most reliably is rarely the most naturally talented person in the room. It is the most genuinely coachable one. The person who sincerely and consistently wants to know where they are currently blind, where they have real and specific weaknesses, and where concrete and actionable room for improvement exists, and who can receive that honest information without immediately becoming defensive, dismissive, or hurt by it. This capacity is rare and genuinely powerful. Most people protect their ego at the direct and compounding cost of their growth. They avoid feedback that might reveal genuine weaknesses because it is uncomfortable and sometimes painful, and in consistently avoiding it, they guarantee that those weaknesses remain permanently unaddressed and limiting. Embrace the genuine and specific discomfort of being a complete beginner at new things throughout every stage of your life, because that discomfort is the feeling of growth actually happening in real time. There is a specific protective ego response that causes many adults to permanently avoid attempting anything they are not already reasonably proficient at. They do not want to be seen struggling or incompetent or uncertain by people whose opinion matters to them. They do not want to experience the awkward, frustrating, and sometimes genuinely humbling process of learning something significant from the absolute beginning. And so they restrict themselves to what they already know and do well, and year by year, their world gradually becomes smaller, and their sense of genuine possibility quietly and imperceptibly contracts. The genuine willingness to be a complete beginner is one of the most profoundly underrated qualities of a committed lifelong learner. Try things that are entirely outside your current skill set and your current comfort zone. Learn a language that has always intrigued you. Take up a physical or creative discipline you have never seriously attempted. Study a field entirely outside your professional expertise and your normal intellectual interests. Not because you need to become an expert in every new thing you attempt, but because the consistent experience of being a genuine and struggling beginner, of navigating those early stages of genuine unfamiliarity, keeps your mind genuinely flexible, realistically humble, and unmistakably alive to the possibility of continued growth that age alone cannot take from you. Regularly audit the actual and honest direction of your growth with clear and courageous eyes. Ask yourself at least annually, am I genuinely and measurably different from the person I was 12 months ago? Or have I essentially remained the same person with the same beliefs and the same limitations? What have I truly learned in the past year that has actually and demonstrably changed how I think or how I behave in practice? What real and specific skills have I developed? What beliefs have I honestly updated or let go of because the evidence required it? What have I released that was holding me back? These questions are not meant to create anxiety or harsh self-judgment. They are meant to create honest and productive clarity about whether you are moving or standing still. The commitment to lifelong growth is the commitment that makes all other commitments in this book sustainable and meaningful over the long arc of a human life. It is the daily declaration that you are not, and never will be, a finished product who has arrived and can coast, that you are a work actively in progress, and that you are genuinely and deeply proud to be exactly that at every stage of your life. Because a work in progress is alive. A work in progress is moving forward. A work in progress still has its most important chapters ahead of it, regardless of how many have already been lived and written. And so do you, always, until the very last breath of your one precious and irreplaceable life. There is one specific and common trap worth naming directly as you commit to lifelong growth. The trap of consuming information about growth without actually practicing it in your real daily life. Reading about habits without building them. Learning about resilience without testing it. Studying purpose without acting on it. Information without application is genuinely entertaining and can feel like progress without producing any. The real and lasting growth happens not in the consumption of ideas, but in the consistent and courageous application of ideas to the actual circumstances of your real life. Every insight in this book is genuinely useless unless you do something real and specific with it in your actual daily life, starting today. Not starting when you feel more ready. Not starting after you finish processing it all. Starting today, imperfectly, with the understanding that doing something imperfect with what you have learned is infinitely more valuable than waiting until you understand it perfectly before you begin to live it. Growth is not a concept. It is a daily practice. It is a choice you make every morning to engage with your life at a slightly deeper level than yesterday and to bring slightly more of who you are becoming to everything you do. Growth is not a destination you reach. It is a direction you maintain. And the people who maintain that direction consistently and deliberately, who choose it every morning and recommit to it after every deviation and every difficult season, are the people who look back at the end of a long life and see clearly that they became, through the cumulative and compounding work of daily choices, something genuinely remarkable, not because they were exceptional to begin with, but because they chose to grow every day they were given the opportunity to do so. That choice is available to you right now. Make it today, and make it again tomorrow, and keep making it for the rest of your life. That is the commitment. That is the practice. That is the path to becoming the person your greatest life genuinely requires. Start today, not at the beginning of next month, not after a significant life event creates the perfect fresh start you have been waiting for. Today, read one page of a book that challenges you. Reflect for 5 minutes on one lesson you have learned this week and what it means for how you will live tomorrow. Ask one honest question to someone whose thinking you respect. Take one action based on something you already know but have not yet applied. Growth does not wait for perfect conditions. It happens in the ordinary moments of deliberate and honest engagement with your daily life. Make today one of those moments, and then make tomorrow one too. That is the practice. That is the path. That is the commitment that makes everything else possible. Chapter 10. Live your purpose and own your greatest life now. Everything in this book has been building patiently and deliberately toward this single and final truth. All of the clarity you have worked to cultivate about what you want, the mindset you have been building deliberately every day, the bold actions taken before you felt ready, the fears you have faced and moved through with courage, the habits you have constructed with patience and consistency, the focus and energy you have learned to protect with intention, the relationships you have chosen with care and cultivated with investment, the setbacks you have survived and risen from with growing strength, and the growth you have committed to without a defined endpoint. All of it, every chapter, every insight, every challenge, and every practice has been in genuine and intentional service of this one essential and irreducible thing, living a life that is genuinely, deeply, and unmistakably yours. A life aligned with your actual and authentic purpose. A life in which you are not a passive passenger, watching your own days pass from behind a pane of protective glass, but the fully present, fully committed, and fully responsible author and builder of every single moment you have been given. Purpose is a word that can feel abstract and overwhelming when you first encounter it seriously, as though it must arrive through some dramatic and unmistakable revelation, a thunderclap moment where everything suddenly becomes perfectly clear, and your entire direction is revealed to you completely and without ambiguity. But that is rarely how purpose actually reveals itself to real people, living real and complicated lives. For most people who find genuine and deep purpose, it is not discovered all at once in a single revelatory moment. It is uncovered gradually and incrementally through honest and consistent self-examination over time, through carefully and persistently paying attention to what consistently moves you at the deepest level, and through the willingness to act on what you discover, even long before you have the full and complete picture figured out to your satisfaction. Start by asking yourself with complete and unflinching honesty, what genuinely breaks my heart about the world? What specific injustice, what unnecessary suffering, what absence or gap in the world as it currently is, makes you feel a deep and persistent pull toward doing something meaningful about it? Purpose is very often found at the precise intersection of what breaks your heart most consistently and what you are uniquely positioned by your experience, your skills, and your life story to actually do about it in real and practical ways. It is found in the specific overlap between what you care about most genuinely and deeply and what you have the skills, the passion, the persistence, and the lived experience to offer, in service of others, and in service of what matters. That particular intersection in your specific life is rarely accidental or random. It is almost always the direct product of everything you have lived, experienced, struggled through, survived, learned from, and developed up to this exact point in your journey. Ask also, with genuine attention and honest reflection, when do you feel most genuinely and fully alive in your daily life? Not merely comfortable, because comfortable is not the same as alive and should never be confused with it. Not simply productive in a technical sense, but genuinely and unmistakably alive. The specific feeling that you are doing something that matters, something you were designed and equipped to do, in exactly the way you were uniquely designed to do it. For some people, this feeling arrives through creating something new and meaningful from nothing. For others, through serving and supporting others in ways that make a real difference. For others, still through teaching, leading, building lasting things, healing those who are suffering, exploring what is not yet understood, or connecting people who need each other. The specific activity, or contribution, that consistently puts you in a state of full presence and genuine deep satisfaction, where time seems to disappear around the work, and you genuinely could not imagine doing anything else that would matter as much. That is an important and reliable signal, pointing directly toward your authentic purpose. Pay very close and honest attention to it. Notice what naturally and consistently draws other people to you, without deliberate effort on your part. What do people reliably come to you for when they are facing something difficult or uncertain? What specific kinds of problems do others bring to you with trust and expectation, sensing that you can help them in ways others cannot? Very often, the gifts that feel most ordinary and unremarkable to us, precisely because we have always had them, and they have always come relatively easily, are the gifts that feel most extraordinary and genuinely rare to others who do not share them. The things that feel completely natural and obvious to you are frequently, and specifically, the things that feel genuinely out of reach to someone else who needs exactly what you have. Your natural gifts, placed deliberately and consistently in the service of real problems and real people, is one of the clearest and most sustainable expressions of living purposefully. Living your purpose does not necessarily require burning your current life completely to the ground and starting over entirely from nothing. It does not require quitting your job immediately, making dramatic and destabilizing decisions that create unnecessary chaos, or waiting until you have the complete and perfect picture of your purpose before beginning to live it. In many cases, living with authentic purpose begins with small but genuinely meaningful shifts in how you engage with what you are already doing, the new depth of intention you bring to your existing commitments and relationships, the additional project you choose to invest your discretionary time and energy in, the side work you begin that speaks to something that genuinely matters to you at a level your current work does not fully reach or honor. A person who genuinely recognizes that their deepest purpose is to awaken possibility in others does not necessarily need to radically change their career or their circumstances to begin living that purpose more fully right now. They need to change the depth, the intention, and the genuine presence with which they show up to what they are already doing. A business owner who recognizes that their genuine purpose is to create opportunity and dignity for the people around them may begin living that purpose more fully and more consciously right now, through how they hire, how they develop the people on their team, how they make decisions that affect other people's lives, and how they direct the energy and resources of what they are already building towards something larger than profit or personal gain. Purpose is not always a radically new destination requiring complete and dramatic reinvention. Sometimes it is a genuinely new depth of engagement and intention with the place and the work and the people you are already in relationship with. Owning your greatest life now means decisively and permanently refusing to make today into a temporary and indefinite waiting room for the life you plan to begin living at some undefined and always receding future point. Someday is the most quietly and persistently dangerous word in the entire human vocabulary, when it is used habitually and without examination. Someday is where genuine dreams go to wait, and to age, and to fade, and eventually to die quietly and without fanfare. Someday is the version of your life that never actually arrives, because you never made the firm and irrevocable decision that today, this specific and imperfect and ordinary day you are currently living, was the right and only available time to genuinely and fully begin. This does not mean being reckless or abandoning thoughtful judgment in your important and consequential decisions. It means being fully and genuinely present to this specific day you are living, as the actual and irreplaceable material of your actual and one life, not as a rehearsal for something better and more real that comes later when conditions improve. The relationships you invest in today are real, and they matter today, and they build toward what will matter tomorrow. The work you do today is real, and it matters today, and it compounds into what you will have and be able to offer tomorrow. The health choices you make today are real, and they matter today, in ways that will echo forward into years and decades you cannot yet see. Not because today will look exactly like the greatest and most complete version of your life, but because today, and only today, is how you build that version one, deliberate and fully committed day at a time, repeated without giving up when it gets hard, and without drifting when it gets easy and comfortable. There is a version of you that this entire book has been speaking to, through every single chapter and every single page. A version of you that is completely and specifically clear about what it wants, and why it matters, and what it is willing to do to have it. Steady and unmovable in its mindset in the face of difficulty and uncertainty. Bold in its actions even before readiness fully arrives. Free from the paralyzing grip of fear that has held it back before. Grounded and remarkably consistent in its daily habits. Focused and fully intentional with its finite and irreplaceable energy. Surrounded by people who genuinely believe in what it is building and who push it forward when it doubts itself. Resilient and consistently capable of rising from every difficulty that finds it. Committed, without wavering, and without an expiration date, to never-ending growth and improvement. That version of you is not a fantasy, or an idealization reserved for people with different circumstances, different starting points, or different advantages. It is what you become, steadily and surely, through the daily and consistent and patient application of everything you have engaged with, honestly and seriously in these pages. The gap between who you are today and who that version of you fully is might feel enormous when you try to see it all at once and measure it in its totality. But it closes, not through a single dramatic and decisive leap that happens all at once. It closes in daily steps taken with full intention, in the choice made every morning, before the noise and the demands and the distractions begin, to show up to your one life with deliberate and clear intention, rather than comfortable and familiar default. In the ongoing and renewable practice of returning, over and over again, after every drift, after every setback, after every day that did not go as you had planned or hoped, to the path and the purpose and the person you have clearly and consciously chosen to build and become. In the genuine willingness to be honest about exactly where you are standing today, while remaining absolutely and unwaveringly committed to where you have decided you are going, and who you have decided you are becoming, through every experience you face. Your life is not merely happening to you, as though you are a spectator of your own story, with no power over what comes next. It is being made by you, by every choice, by every habit, by every thought you entertain and act on, by every relationship you invest in, or allow to diminish you, by every response to adversity you choose to make, by every dream you decide to pursue, with full commitment, or abandon, with comfortable excuses. All of it, every single day, is the continuous and ongoing construction of your one irreplaceable life. You are the builder. The materials are your days and your choices and your energy and your attention. The foundation is your purpose. The design is your vision and your values. The quality of the construction is determined by your habits, your discipline, and your refusal to quit when things get genuinely hard. This is your moment. Not someday when everything is better and more certain. Not after you figure everything out completely and perfectly. Not when the fear finally goes away on its own. Now, today, this chapter, this breath you are taking as you read these final words. The greatest version of your life is not waiting in some distant and uncertain future that may or may not arrive. It is waiting for the clear, firm, fully committed, and daily renewed decision to begin building it right here, with exactly what you have, and exactly who you are becoming through this process. Own your story completely and without apology. Own every choice you make with full awareness and accountability. Own your growth and your setbacks with equal honesty and equal commitment. Own your purpose without waiting for more permission than you already have. Own your one great life in all its imperfection and all its genuine and irreplaceable possibility. This is how you get what you truly want, and it starts right now, today, with this breath, and this choice, and this renewed and unbreakable commitment.